Hey there, how you doing today? Doing a devotional on Ephesians 5:21 to 33. What's one of the hardest words in the Bible? One word we don't want to hear, don't want to talk about. I'll tell you one. If you want to clear a room or at least create some uncomfortable shifting in seats, then read Ephesians 5:22 out loud in mixed company. For wives, this means submit to your husbands as to the Lord. People have strong reactions to that verse. Some people feel vindicated by it. Like, that's right, you gotta submit. Some people feel irritated. Some hurt because they've seen it used badly or been a victim of it being used wrongly. And a lot of people just stop reading right there. And yeah, Christianity. And missed what Paul was actually trying to say. So you got to back up one verse because Paul doesn't start with wives submitting to husbands. He starts with this: submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. That's verse 21, mutual submission, everyone out of reverence for Christ. That's the foundation for the rest of this passage. And it really changes the conversation if we read the section properly. The word submit picked up a lot of baggage over the years, most of it deserved, because the concept has been misused. But the Greek word that Paul uses there, it carries the idea of voluntarily placing yourself under someone else for the sake of order and relationship. Here's Strong's definition. In non-military use, it was a voluntary attitude of giving in, cooperating, assuming responsibility, and carrying a burden. It's not forced. It isn't about one person being worth less than another. It's a choice made out of love and respect and trust and cooperation. Because no matter how good of a cook we are, too many chefs ruin the meal. It's that kind of idea. And in a pastoral context, I'd like to think that we're all submitting to one another in love and respect, but someone's the leader, and I'm going to follow your directing out of love and respect for the well-being of the body of Christ. Doesn't mean anyone's infallible or untouchable. We don't turn a blind eye to faults or shortcomings or sin. In fact, we really need people to keep leaders accountable in a respectful and a loving manner. And if stuff does come up, then we want to deal with it in a loving and a godly way. But we follow by choice of our free will and our common sense. Like, I'm not going to follow someone who's abusive or demanding or on a power trip just because Jesus said so. Follow me because Jesus said so. No, I'm going to follow someone who's doing their best to be Christ-like and to do it out of love and respect for the church and for Jesus. That's the model that Paul's working from. Not a corporate hierarchy, not a power structure, a loving relationship with emphasis on loving. And everybody, because there's a lot of debate, energy spent debating instructions to wives in this passage, and not nearly enough on what Paul says to husbands. Verse 25, for husbands, this means love your wives just as Christ loved the church. He gave up his life for her. And I use this passage sometimes when I'm officiating a wedding, and I always like to point out that as much as wives don't like hearing the first part, the husband is really given the harder job. Because the word love here is agape, and it's not romantic love, it's not erotic love, it's not friendship love. It's unselfish, sacrificial love, the same love that walked to the cross, the same love that said, not my will but yours be done, the same love that washed feet, served, gave, kept on giving, even when it cost everything, the kind of love that only God can truly have. That's the standard that Paul sets for husbands, not authority, not leadership in a boardroom sense, but sacrificial, self-giving love that puts the other person first. Love that is so undeniable that when that kind of love is given to you, you want to devote yourself to that person. If you want to talk about the hardest instruction in this passage, I'm arguing it's that one. Submitting to someone you trust, that's one thing, and that's difficult in some ways. And but submission doesn't mean slavery. It means, okay, we'll do it your way this time. But loving someone, but the same love that Christ showed the church, literally laying down your life for their good, that's a different kind of challenge altogether. And for some guys, it's like, well, dying would be the easier thing to do. I'd give my life for you. Like, that's macho, and that's a manly thing. But yeah, would you give up your pride and have some give and take in the relationship? Like, would you listen to your wife and your kids and treat them with respect and kindness and do things their way sometimes? Like, it's complicated, and I'm picking at low-hanging fruit, but too much time spent on the word submit and not nearly enough time spent on the word love in this section over the years. My opinion, and I'm sticking with it. Paul says men should love their wives like they love their own body. The idea being, if you love your wife, you love yourself. There's no winners and losers here. There's just two become one. Either we both win or we both lose. And if one of us wins at the other's expense, we've both lost. Because a healthy person cares for their own body. They feed it, they care for it, they look after it. That's how a husband is supposed to regard his wife. Her well-being is his well-being. And I think Paul doesn't tell women to do this because they're already geared to do that. Like, most women are already caring and nurturing, and most men need to be reminded to do that. Treat your wife that same way. And the model is Jesus. And he's a tough act to follow. Like, I haven't met anybody who has given their life to Christ who has any issue with Jesus being an authority. I haven't met anybody like that. And it's not because we're brainwashed by religion. It's because in everything he did it in love for us. If you're an 80s child, you can think of the old Brian Adams song, Everything I Do. We see love in action. We see him loving children. We see him caring for widows. We see him befriending sinners. We see him forgiving those caught in sin. We see him healing the hopeless. We see him carrying a cross and walking a hill and stretching out his hands, taking our sin, bearing our punishment, defeating our enemy, rising again, giving us freedom and victory. And we know that he's earned our trust, our respect, our love, and our devotion. It's not forced from us. We give it freely because it's all we really have to give that even comes somewhat close to repaying everything he's done for us, his love and his kindness. That's the template for the husband's love. And I always argue that if husbands truly loved like the Bible tells us to, submission wouldn't even be a conversation we're having, because you trust someone who consistently demonstrates that your good matters more to them than their own comfort. It's not hard to follow someone like that. And I just think it's really messed up, and I feel frustrated by the way the church has been used as a platform for misogynist men to put women in their place, so to speak, because it's not what the Bible teaches. The problem isn't the design. The problem is when the design gets distorted, when authority gets invoked without love, when submission gets demanded rather than offered freely, when the cross gets left out of the picture entirely, and all that's left is a power arrangement with a Bible verse attached. That's not what Paul's describing. And it's worth being loud and clear about, as far as I'm concerned. I really hate leadership that demands submission based on some religious fear-mongering. I hate it, and I've seen the damage it's done in people's life. If you love like Jesus, Mr. Leader, people will follow. When it starts with a loving leadership, following isn't even an issue. I'll come back to verse 21. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Before there's any specific instructions, this is the general principle. Mutual submission, putting others ahead of yourself, looking out for each other's interests rather than your own. Paul says it often in his letters. In Philippians, he says, consider others better than yourself. In Romans, he says, honor one another above yourselves. The posture of a Christian life, one that leaders are supposed to model, is consistently other-centered rather than self-centered. Or if you want to use an old acronym, if you want joy, J-O-Y, it's spelled Jesus, others, you. Put Jesus first, put others next, put yourself last, and joy is going to follow you on your path. And I found that to be true when I'm able to do it. I'm not a shining example of this. I got my own struggles with being selfish, just like everybody else. But whenever I spell me, Jesus, you, or even Jesus, me, you, it doesn't bring joy. JOY is where it's at. Jesus first, your partner second, yourself last. That'll bring you joy in your marriage, especially when both parties are doing it. When both the wife and the husband are like Jesus, you, me, that's joy. That'll bring joy to a marriage. That's a joy-filled marriage that's bound to succeed and last, guaranteed. The hardest word in this passage, I don't think it's submit, although that word gets all the attention. Hardest word is agape, in my opinion. Husbands, love your wives. That's the broader message of the Bible. Love God, love people, give yourself up consistently, sacrificially, not when it's convenient, when it costs something. My opinion that if Christian men, myself, Christian men, were actually the kind of fathers and husbands and employees and foremen and mayors and presidents the Bible actually tells us to be, there would be so many less problems in the world. That's what I think. The concept of a patriarchy wouldn't even be a thing because men would be loving on another level, at least in Christianity. And that kind of love isn't natural to any of us. It's the fruit of someone who knows Jesus, like really knows Jesus, received that love from him and is passing it on, which is why Paul starts where he does. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Because when Christ is the center and when his love is flowing through a relationship and through our churches and throughout our communities, the rest has a chance of actually working out. I'll leave you with 1 John 4:7. Dear friends, let us continue to love one another, for love comes from God, and anyone who loves is a child of God and knows God. But anyone who does not love does not know God, for God is love. God bless you. Have a great day.